We're going to call to order at 5:05. First agenda item, do I have a motion on the minutes from January 16th?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. First agenda item is a report on the K-5 literacy curriculum review status. I guess that's you, Tom, since Christine's not here.
Sure. Let me pull it up and I'll read you what they sent me. Sorry, I'm just getting online here. All right, so here is the update from Karen Malone, our literacy coordinator, and Christine DeRocher. We had a really productive day on the Professional Development Day on January 27th, 2023. It included an afternoon session for K-5 teachers to review 5 reading programs. They reviewed Wonders, Wit and Wisdom, Amplify, My View, and the Fontes and Canal Classroom instructional models. In addition, teachers requested at that day to look at the Open Court reading program. Those materials were not received in time for the evaluation on January 27th and have been received by the district since then. Teachers were given the Reading League curriculum evaluation tool to evaluate to get feedback on the programs. After analysis of the data collected from the teachers, the 2 programs have risen to the top are My View and F&P Classroom, and over the next few weeks, they will be reviewing Open Court. Just so the public knows, Mr. Rocher and Karen Malone and our math coordinator are at a professional development event this week, so they will be back on Friday. And so they've narrowed it down so far to those 2. The next steps will include the staff reviewing the Open Court, reviewing the data from that analysis, and then having representatives from each publishing company present to the teachers and answer questions for teachers. And I would also say that after that, there has to be some kind of a pilot where people actually teach units from the different reading programs like we did with math, and then give feedback to everyone about the programs.
Any questions? Does anyone else have any questions?
No, I just got the list of the district court meeting, most of the things they're looking at, so I'll Google and see what they have. I just Googled Open Court, it says K through 3. As a descriptor underneath where it says K through 5, it just then says here what we do for K through 3. I can't find anything for 4 or 5. But I'll just.
Yeah, I'm sure Christine will get you whatever you'd like your sample. I mean, we will go through a similar process.
I was gonna say, are we gonna kind of do like we did with the math
Yes,
program?
Absolutely, absolutely. It needs to be a process that includes everyone and everyone has a chance to look at it. Teacher adoption, administration's comfortable, board's comfortable, everyone feels like it's the right way to go. And this one's big for me personally, because this is an area of major passion for me as an educator. And so I've been directly involved. There was some resistance at one of the buildings about choosing a reading program and tightening that up. And I actually went and met directly with teachers. And my message was, we're happy to support people. We want them to feel like they have a voice in this, but we are moving forward and choosing a program because our reading scores are not where they need to be. And ironically, 3 weeks later, the reading scores came out and we were exactly where I said we would be. So it just lined up right up. So everybody understands now that this is the collaboration is a key component to successfully choosing a program, but choosing a program is non-negotiable. And everyone's fine with that once I explained to them that we look at lots of programs, and they had a misconception that they were going to be looking at only 2 programs, and that was not true. We would never look at just 2 programs, we're looking at a lot of programs.
What's the timeline now? Because it feels like there's been some serious delay. We were supposed to have a presentation in December and then January, and it doesn't seem like we're going to have a presentation anytime soon.
I would say it'll be similar to math. I mean, once you choose 2 to 3 programs, I don't want to answer for Christine because I don't really feel comfortable, but I would just say that realistically, you need 4 to 5 weeks to teach units in the 1 or 2 programs that we're really looking at. So let's say that we're doing My View and F&P Classroom. How Christine structures that, I'm not sure, but my expectation is that we hopefully make a decision by the end of this school year, purchase the materials, do the professional development, and begin rollout in the fall. That would be my hope. I'm not rushing this. If it's not done right, it could be really bad. And reading is really, really important for our strategic goals. So I am totally comfortable saying that I am optimistic that we'll make it there. That's just me speaking. I'm not speaking for Christine. I don't know what she said to you about, Jen and I had an emergency during the last EISA meeting, so I missed the meeting. So I apologize for that, but it was significant. And Christine is in charge of the implementation of this. We're shooting for having something adopted for the fall. Yeah, I'm very optimistic if they've got it down to My View and F&P Classroom, that once they look at the materials for open court, if they feel like that's worth piloting, we could have different people pilot different things from all 3 and be on a similar trajectory as we were for final adoption. I don't know if folks were planning to present something to you in December for adoption. That would be very ambitious. I would not have thought that would have been. It just takes time. You have to review a lot of stuff to do this well. So I was under the impression that our goal was to shoot for implementation for September. Is that, am I off?
I would think that would certainly be the goal. Because if you don't adopt it for September, there's a whole, lose a whole year.
You could. I certainly am feeling comfortable with the movement that we have on January 27th, that we'll get there. I'm not sure. Again, I don't want to speak for Christine, so I'll let her send you an update on the timeline. I'll just ask her to send you something. Fine.
Let me know you can move to April, see what she thinks.
I was gonna say end of March. Wait, I'll text her right.
Oh my gosh, give her a break. She's working hard.
She is. She's doing great, so it's fine.
Don't worry, Christine, I got your back.
I will email her and just ask her if we could get a timeline. Not a problem.
I would say, yes, I would be looking for a timeline.
Yeah.
And I would be looking for certainly a reinforcement that the target is for next fall to be able to adopt
Start the year.
and roll out a curriculum for next fall.
And I think we should lay out her curriculum program that's where it falls. Reading is done for starting out in the fall.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so our next agenda item regards preparing to offer Algebra 1 in 8th grade. And the reason that I put this on the agenda is because as I emailed everyone, but not everyone is going to know that.
Thank you.
In October, this came up in our meeting, and it was at the very end of the meeting, and there was a question about how we were doing, and then there was a reference to, well, we need to have a philosophical discussion. That surprised me because we had, as far as I know, been in general agreement that that was a goal, to be able to, offer algebra in 8th grade and prepare our students. We've circulated, we've emphasized many times in public that the data supports that. So I wanted to follow up on that, and I wanted to do that. We didn't have a December meeting, so our November meetings and our January meetings were kind of consumed, and Tom was not here to discuss it in January, so it ended up being pushed to today. So that was my reason for, wanting to have this on the agenda.
Yeah. So Matt will.
Yeah, so this is again, this is the set of criteria that Mr. Roger put together. So I'm kind of updating you on it. She and I have reviewed it together though, so I'm familiar with it. But in terms of the criteria, just so you know, she did research neighboring schools in New Hampshire, looked at what they've been doing, schools that offer algebra 1 to 8th grade. Because obviously we want to set our kids up for success, make sure they're prepared to take algebra 1 in the 8th grade, and what need to happen along the way from 6th, 7th grade leading into 8th grade. So, excuse me. And And you can see it's broken down by grade level. Again, it's just a draft, so, you know, these are the variety of criteria that, that we thought might be appropriate. So in terms of students entering the sixth grade and how we determine their math placement, there's 4 criteria that we're looking at. There could be an end of year test. Essentially, that would be assessing the fifth graders' memorial skills and math knowledge as they're leaving memorial school. That would be an in-house assessment. We don't currently have that. That would be something we have to create. Teacher feedback, and having been a 9th grade physical science teacher who was teaching at a level school with math prerequisites and things, teacher feedback was important. So we had teacher feedback from memorial teachers regarding math practices, because as you can imagine, we go this route and, you know, it's probably be an accelerated 6th grade math class. Those students are going to need to have the habits of mind, the work habits, the motivation to complete that course. So we want teacher feedback because we don't know those kiddos up to middle school yet. So we thought some feedback from the 5th grade team would be beneficial. The NEWA math test, I think you're all probably all familiar. We've been given the NEWA for years. We just gave the NEWA math assessment today, the second one. We did one in October. We did one this week in both reading and math. The data is fantastic. I was looking at the data again today. It's very specific, shows you exactly the kids' strengths, areas of weakness. It actually tells you exactly what they need to work on. So we have our math interventionists who right now, and for the last few months, have been working directly with kids on what they need to fill in the gaps. So the NEWA data is great. The SAS data is also solid. It also shows you where you are in relation to the state. So we probably want to kind of, we're going to use that as a criteria. We probably want to cut score maybe. There should be enough. They have to be above sufficient or somewhere in between. But again, if you were, and you look down the bottom where the 3 asterisks are, in order for a student to qualify for, I've heard the term grade extension. Yeah, essentially, it's another name for accelerated math. They need to meet all the criteria, whether it's 4, 3, whatever we decide upon. But that would be the recommendation, that they have to meet all the criteria. Should be noted that students who in the 6th grade who are enrolled in that extension class, are enrolled in that accelerated math class, they receive the exact same core skills, same concepts taught as the regular math class, but there'd be just greater expectation for, you know, abstract reasoning, problem solving. I imagine there'd be a bit more homework, more independent work, because as you're going to see, as they move into 7th grade, they'd be ramped up more. We shift down to the 7th grade criteria. They look the same, right? The 3 out of the 4 are the same. Some kind of an end of year assessment that would be in-house, the NEWA, the SAS. But if you look down to the final paragraph, that's where you'll see some similarities and some differences to our expectations and what we use to determine math placement. I'll just read from this. In order for a student to qualify for the 7th grade math extension or accelerated math, they need to meet all 3 criteria, or whatever we decide. And here's the key: the 7th grade extension math or accelerated would differ from the 7th grade math in that it would contain 8th grade content. Okay, so students in 7th grade, what's called accelerated, that's the term I'm using, would have both 7th and 8th grade concepts taught to them. So that additional content, you know, when compared to just the regular 7th grade course, it's going to demand a lot more in-depth understanding of mathematics. They're going to be applying concepts, you know, solving more sophisticated problems. And if you think about it, the pace is going to be a lot faster. Prepare them for Algebra 1. They're going to be covering more content. These are going to need to be our most motivated independent learners, kids who can handle more workload, can handle more rigor, and more homework for that matter. So, I feel like, definitely it's a step up from even the sixth grade accelerated. And then regarding the, criteria for eighth grade, which really would be how would a student be eligible for Algebra 1? There are 4 criteria. The first 3 I've already mentioned. For the audience, I'll say it again. We've got an end of year test, the NEWA, the SAS, but the 4th criteria that Mr. Roger identified is an assessment that I'm not familiar with, but she is. It's the Orleans-Hanna Algebra Prognosis Test. It's a Pearson product. It's a really good assessment tool, I've been told, predicting student readiness for Algebra 1. That assessment, prognosis test will really let us know if a kid's ready when they leave 7th grade, take Algebra 1 in the 8th grade. And then just the last comment before I open it up for any questions. Similarly to the other grades, they need to, whatever criteria is decided upon, if it's C4 or something else, the student should meet them. This would be a high school Algebra 1 class, taken in middle school, just so you know. So as I have listed in that last paragraph, high school competencies, and it would be truly a high school Algebra 1 class. So, and the remainder of that paragraph is just describing an Algebra 1 high school level, which good for now. But if you have any questions, I think to take or maybe bring back to Christine.
I have a question. So I think this is great. I think the students that really are gonna want this. I mean, no question. The 8th grade Algebra 1, that is going to be a high school course. We've done that previously, correct? We've offered the 8th grade Algebra 1. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have, because I know,
Yes, we have.
I know somebody whose student took Algebra 1 in 8th grade. They're now in high school. They didn't get credit for Algebra 1, but they couldn't take Algebra 1, they moved up to Algebra 2. So now they're short of math class.
Right,
they-
so they
but
did
they're-
geometry algebra 2, but they didn't get the Algebra 1 credit. but
Right,
they- so
and
will they
but
get high
their
school?
career path now is not headed in the math direction.
Mhm.
So they're trying to figure out alternatives. So it kind of puts the high school student in a little bit of a sticky wicket if they don't get like a high school credit for taking a high school class in middle school. It's like taking a college course in high school where you get credit for the college course and the high school course at the same time. So we potentially do something like that if we're doing a high school Algebra 1 class in 8th grade, so that the kids don't have an issue if they really aren't looking to take all the math courses because they've decided this is not the trajectory I'm headed on. I mean, that's my question, because I know somebody that's struggling with that right now.
Did I hear in there a grain of, tell me if I got it right, if you take Algebra 1 in 8th grade, I'm thinking of it as a guidance counselor.
Yeah.
Would you get credit for Algebra 1 in high school?
Yeah, could you transfer that credit
Will the credit
over?
count? You see, yeah, and that's a great question.
Like you do for like the college courses that you take in high school, same type of idea. You take a college course based that you get college credit for, it carries over, same idea.
Yeah.
You take it in the high school course in 8th grade, can you carry that credit over to high school so that you're not,
So this fulfills part of the math.
that would fulfill a
Requirement.
credit in their math requirements, so that if they're a student that isn't going to take all of the other advanced math courses that are there, they're struggling, or they just don't have a passion for it anymore, they're not trying to figure out how to fulfill their math credits when they've already taken the math class that they didn't get credit for.
So essentially, they don't want to, because what it boils down to is,
Yeah.
not a math course, they want to take 5 high school math classes rather than 4.
Right.
But
Maybe they only want to
it
take
doesn't
3
happen.
now.
Right, yeah, so,
Right.
yeah, so they're basically like, they were, and they're an accelerated student, so they took the accelerated math classes, but they don't want to take, those super crazy math classes because they don't need them for the career path they're looking for now. So they don't,
What is the math requirement?
It's 3 years of pure math classes, and then students in their senior year can opt to take either an additional math class or a math experience class, which is a class that uses math in the course. So like a woodworking or welding, financial skills.
That last one's not required though, or
It's
is,
required, so they have to take for their 4th year of math. It has to be either pure math or a math experience class.
okay, so 4 years of math that's the requirement of the diploma.
For, yes, for our, yeah, for
Okay, so they're, okay, I see what you're
And I
saying, so
think
they're
my
stuck with
own
algebra
concern
2 and calculus and pre-calculus,
Right.
and maybe AP calculus when they
Right.
don't really wanna, they
So
can't
my own
handle those
concern, and
classes.
I totally hear
Yeah.
what you're saying, is I think that if kids came in with algebra 1, and then they take geometry, and then they take algebra 2, then they're done with math in their sophomore year. And so then if we think about kids who are being prepared for SATs in the spring of their junior year, now it's almost been an entire year that they've been exposed to any type of math concept. And I think that we think of kids who are alignment test has a lot of math in the alignment test. Plumbing, you go into plumbing school, you're using a lot of math, electrician. So I think what we need to do is start changing the narrative for kids and maybe expanding some of our math classes
And maybe
so
that's
that
what it
it's
is,
not.
expanding the offering
Right,
in the math, because the way I understand it, they're not. If you really are not looking to take pre-calc and all those things, like if that's really not, you don't need to go there.
no, I.
You know what I mean, like, But they're really limited in what they're able to take, so it's making it extremely challenging.
Well, we have a topics in applied college math class, which is a math class that we use algebra 1 and geometry and helps kids prepare for the AccuPlacer. And we recommend that class for kids who are going into the trades because it does review a lot of the math concepts that are on those tradesman tests. We have a statistics and probability class. And we offer that at the CP as well as the Running Start class. Oftentimes our kids who are heading into the social work and human services field, because they need to take a statistics class in that major anyways, that's the math that they will, opt into. And then we have had kids who are taking a financial math, that's through, Edgenuity. So we do have some options, but I agree, I think maybe expanding a financial math
Expanding
or.
options, or, I mean, they know that some of those like math experiences, those are half credit classes, is that?
Yeah, so
Correct.
they're now half credit classes
Yeah,
because we have
yeah.
semesters, so.
Right.
We
So,
have,
I
they have
mean,
to take 2 of them.
If we could even give them half a credit
Mhm,
for their algebra 1,
mhm,
so they only have to take that other half credit,
mhm.
instead of trying to find 2 other half credit classes to make up for a full credit. I mean, that way they still have to do something every year.
Yeah.
I think there are some, I think
Yeah, I think we do have to be
we could
creative, I know,
figure it out.
yeah, next year for, one of our English classes, in acknowledgement that many of our students don't go on to a four-year college, so they don't need that college essay writing component, so the English teachers have created a class called, English for Trades and Industry, I think it's called. So it's really focused on that, what kind of writing, if you're going to own your own automotive shop business, what kind of writing do you need to do to be able to communicate your skills to your customers? So it's really focusing on those kind of that skill set, writing a resume, communicating, so do kind of that public speaking pieces of it. And I do think that we need to do more of that for math, so maybe we start doing some exploring around what does the math look like on that alignment test, working with some of our industry folks to say what kind of math goes into an apprenticeship test when you're going for your plumbing license, or we have a number of students who are interested in real estate now. So what kind of math might you use in real estate? So doing some exploring around that, maybe creating a senior math that's based on the trades and industry
Yeah, I like that.
to give some options, because I
Right.
do think we have to continue. We do a great job at developing internships and helping kids to explore careers. And now we need to kind of backfill some of our curriculum to support those career paths.
Awesome.
But I would be very hesitant to have a student not take another math class after they're in tenth grade, because if their interests flip again, then all of a sudden they're at the community college taking the acupuncture, and they're testing into only those developmental math classes, which cost a lot of money and don't count towards your certificate program or your associate's degree. So I think we would be doing a disservice to kids if we said they didn't need a math after.
And I don't wanna tell kids they don't need a math, but I think we have to figure out a way to make sure that there are more options available.
yeah,
so
that
that
is more
Kids don't
applicable.
feel stuck and like, basically, I screwed myself. That's kind of, the feeling that I know this one student has is I screwed myself by taking algebra one ahead of time. I got no credit for it, and now I have to take another math class that I really don't even understand. I'm failing, how do I get out of this, So,
And they do credit for it, it's just elective credit, they don't earn math credit for it. So, but the credit does transfer over, and it does show on their transcript that they took it in math, in eighth grade, so it does show that there was some acceleration.
I think if they got, at least, either, if we can work on either half credit or other options or something, but we need to we really need to dig into that part of it.
Well, the lucky thing is that the first group that would do this would be probably next year. So we have some time to figure out.
Right.
It's an important point. The other question is, do we just count it as an elective credit? But not
But
one of the
they
math.
need, that's what they do, but it doesn't count towards math, so then
Right.
you're stuck, you can
The
kind of.
philosophical question is, one
Right.
that we have to grapple with as a community is what do we want kids to not take math their junior year? And I think I'm hearing you saying before that they did, but have more options.
Right,
Glad that,
yeah,
Yeah.
more options, or, it's a half a credit, so they still have to take something, but it could be more, the half credit type of math class instead of a full credit. I don't know, I think there's probably ways we can work around it.
that's something we'll have to figure out. We can work on something proposal with that.
I think I'm not pretty excited to kind of tackle that. And do some research around because I think you're absolutely right, if students doesn't see the connection between what their future is and the math class that's sitting in front of them, they're going to have a hard time
Right,
plugging through, because those math classes are hard.
Right.
But if we can find a math class that is relatable, then they will be more excited about learning the math.
Right.
And that is then going to transfer and generalize to, I need to do well on math in this class. And I think we will see the fruits of that in SAT testing.
I had the same questions that they get they get credit. So if you listen to this discussion, I'll go back to the discussions that I had with the different math teams and math programs. I picked up these big, thick reveal books for algebra and algebra 2 and geometry, and I said, this is a whole lot of stuff to get through in a year. And the response was, we know you're doing it. Yeah, so what do you do? We just stop when you stop. We don't get through the books. So if we're looking to say, well, what might they do? I would say that a good place to start would be to look at this year, the first year with the reveals, and say, how far through the book did you get? And then you can look at algebra 2 and say, how far through the book did you get? And maybe there's an algebra 2 deep dive course that's offered to pick up algebra 2 again for those parts of the book that you weren't able to get through. So now you're still progressing on a line of accumulated math skills, knowledge, concepts, and theories that would address what Heidi's talking about in terms of having you prep by the time you get into the 11th grade and doing your things. And you're not leaving on the table something that, there's a whole book that we haven't gotten through of the algebra and the algebra 2. So I would say that'd be something to take a look at up front as a possibility. The other thing that I point out on this is, and I think that it should probably be added, so we could bring this to Christine's attention for her harping back, is we mentioned that end of year testing, but I would think it would also be grades. What grade do you have? So if you're going to be striving to go into a 6th grade extension math, then you need to have, and I want to use maths common proficient, you need to have an 85 average. I mean, you need to be at least plus 85 average. And if you're not, then the presupposition is you're not ready. Perhaps you can overcome that but the presupposition is that you're not ready to have been able to maintain that in your current grade. Something along those lines. There should be something about how did you do, what are you getting for your grades in your current classes? And if everybody in fifth grade is getting a C, then you're probably not gonna have a lot of them capable of taking the math extension program in sixth. Which I would go back to, and this is coming up later, which is all the more reason to know where exactly kids really are in terms of grade point averages, and by grade point averages, I mean 0 to 100 scale. How competent are they? How capable are they? And then that becomes one of your gates as to whether they can get in. And then that gives kids something to strive for. You say, oh, if I want to get into that, I have to make sure I keep my grades up on this during the course of the year through all my classes in order to get into this accelerated thing, because I ultimately want to be in the accelerated program. So I would think that that would be, because it's conspicuously missing from this list is how are they doing in math, the grades that they're in.
Oh, Christina, that's a good point.
That's a good point.
And I think you could maybe, we could add that in, and where it says like you need to meet all three criteria, it could be you need to meet 3 out of 4 criteria, because I mean, we've also talked right in the subcommittee a lot about the fact that not everyone performs their best on those NEWA and SAS tests. Sometimes if you're having a bad day, whatever, you have a gold score, but everywhere else you're, showing you can do it. Maybe that can get discounted. Maybe that one can get washed away. Maybe that'll give the kids a little bit more of a chance. Like, you don't know if the kid's slept well the night before. You don't know if there's something going on with their family at home. So maybe one of those, we don't need to have all of them count, you can 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 5, but we add the grades in there because I think that's important. It's showing, are they able to meet the criteria that's in front of them currently?
Ultimately, a teacher assessment is going to be important. So
Right.
how do you deal with someone who is getting a 95 average in math in fifth grade and bombs a NEWA test, and the teacher knows that the kid's outstanding and can handle it because they're already talking about things that are next year's courses? How do you deal with that? If you have a hard and fast saying, nope, you didn't get this on NEWA, you're out. There needs to be some human subjectivity there that's making them assess it.
And you gotta be really careful with that, because what Christine is trying to block, I think, and I don't want to speak for her. What I hear the committee saying is that the next step is to talk about the finesse of this. So the concept is acceptable as a
Okay,
whole.
so I haven't gone yet, actually.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I want to backtrack, actually, because this goes to the reason I placed this on the agenda. I think this is really well done, and I have to say from my own experience I had 2 kids that went through the middle school. My son, and there's none of this in play. Like, I tried to get my son into accelerated classes in 6th grade, and there really wasn't anything at that time. My daughter did not get placed in algebra in 8th grade, and I requested that she be placed in algebra in 8th grade. So I have my own experience with, there wasn't a plan. I think it's good to have a plan. But I am curious as to why we are not talking about preparing all of our kids, because that was the original part. I mean, maybe not 100% of our kids are going to be able to handle algebra in 8th grade, but that was the target. That was what we talked about. Studies show that if you have algebra in 8th grade, your SAT scores are probably going to be better. So, and we have an accelerated, rigorous math program that we've adopted, and part of the goal there was to prepare our students, as many as possible, for algebra in 8th grade. I mean, I can't even tell you how many parents were angry that there was only 1 algebra class in 8th grade, which meant that there was a cutoff of the number of students that could make it in, and there were more students that wanted to take it, and they got cut out. So I'm concerned about that. And I'm also I'm also wondering, like, is this just sort of an interim plan because math, and it's gonna take a little while for the feeder, to work, and then this is going to be revised and we're going to.
Thank you very much. I was thinking exactly what you said at the end. This is the interim plan, because I completely concur that the ultimate plan should be everybody takes algebra 1, but there has to be.
You're not gonna be able to do that.
But there has to be a.
No, you have to make accommodations for, there's obviously,
Yeah,
but
you're
that
gonna have
should be
The default should be algebra, should be the target. If people aren't ready for it in 8, then we have to get them ready for 9.
Right.
So your point was well taken. I think the difference, tell me if I'm wrong, but I really agree with you that the difference is if you have, and I want to make sure that Jen gets
Yeah,
to her stuff. It's
sorry,
really
but now-
important. But no, but this is the start. We have a lot to talk about, right? And I do want Christine here for the finesse of this, but she wanted to get you the layout to get ready, because there is a next step, which is if you only have one section of Algebra 1 in 8th grade, and you can only have 20 students in that section, but you have 35 kids who are
Or
ready,
24.
then we gotta figure that out. You know what I'm saying? And that's what this does, is it says if you qualify, you're in. We have to figure it out. If we have to ask a high school teacher to teach a section of middle school algebra, if we have to have a little bit smaller class sizes and have 2 classes, if you're in, you're in. So we're trying to open that gate to be in if you're in. But we're also trying to be careful. I know, because I've talked to Christine about this, there are 2 things that she's really worried about. One is that there's work that shows that some kids developmentally just aren't ready for Algebra 1. It's not a scope and sequence issue, it's a brain issue, and I want her to talk about that. There are many kids who aren't prepared for Algebra 1, which is a scope and sequence issue and an instructional issue. And then there are some kids that are totally ready. She just wants to be careful that we don't have, this is what happens when you have an override or too much gray. And this is gonna come up with Jen with the honors classes. So when you have an override system, I'm fine with an override system. So you say to me, hey, Tom, you know, you're the principal, I want my daughter in Algebra 1. Sure, sign this piece of paper. They didn't meet the criteria. The class is not going to slow down. The class is gonna, and if they fail, you understand that they may fail and that we didn't recommend it. She probably won't, knowing you and your family and, you
She
know.
didn't fail, but she didn't get an
Yeah.
A, and
Yeah.
they said, well, she's probably, you know, and I said, I don't care if she gets
Yeah.
A's, I want her to
And-
be challenged. Because
Exactly.
I knew she wasn't gonna be.
Exactly. What has happened though is that with AP classes, they've had an override to put kids into AP. And it gets so many overrides that it does slow down the pace of the class. You can't have that, and we have observed that can occur. So one of the first things that I said when I was hired here to the principal was, if you were an AP, it's AP. I don't care if 2 kids out of 7 make the pace. The AP pace is AP pace. Just create a circuit breaker. End of quarter 1, if you can't handle the pace, you just drop down to honors or the regular class. But the pace for AP is the pace for AP. The pace for Algebra 1 for 8th grade, if there's some kind of a circuit breaker, has to be the pace for Algebra 1. That's the only concern that I have. But I think that I'm sorry. I think that
I mean, my other concern would be, you're kind of like, predisposing, prejudging very early on, at the end of 5th grade, and you're tracking these kids, and, I mean, I feel like that minimizes the opportunity for other kids, if you're targeting these kids with more accelerated classes. What if someone else might be ready, but they just weren't ready at the end of 5th grade when they're doing all this testing?
we'll have to look at
I
that.
have some concerns about that too.
Okay.
I'd like to
I
make
did,
sure that.
yeah, the
Yeah, I do know-
seventh grade being like it's a intensive and you're taking 7th and 8th grade. But if you didn't get the accelerated 6th grade because you didn't make it, then all of a sudden like math kicks in for you, you're gonna have a really hard time.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
because, everybody else has this leg up, they were tracked earlier
So I
on.
would say, the interim component to it, there are kids who will never build it out of 1 8th grade.
Absolutely.
And I was at Exeter High School for 10 years teaching 9th grade physical science, and we were level, honors, college prep, academic, and there were prerequisites. Kids had to have completed Algebra 1 with a B or better to take honors. Some people overrode, and those kids got, because my class was all in science, it was all math. They had to have strong algebra skills. Unless they were super motivated, want to come for extra help and have me teach them algebra or what they're missing, they were in deep trouble. We could get there, but, coming out of the pandemic, working with my interventionists, looking at our NEWA data, our SAS data, we have serious holes. But now, it's gonna take a little while to get there. I think it's good to aspire to get there, but hopefully, we'll get there.
But I like all Jen's points.
I agree.
I agree with that point.
Well, there's gonna be like the tracking, and I wanna get to Jen, so I'm just gonna say this last piece, if it's okay with you, Tammy. The tracking piece, what I heard Tammy's concern is that the kids are in sixth grade, at the end of fifth grade, placed in one of two tracks. I think there needs to be like a circuit breaker. If your brain matures and you start doing more math, then we should look at, yeah, if your NWA scores come back higher, things happen, yeah. Yeah, you know, we'll have to look at that.
No,
That's a
sometimes
really
you
reasonable
can-
thing.
I don't know how many kids at high school I had where if they started CP level as freshmen, I was recommending it for honors next year. You need, your teachers need to differentiate, they need to identify where kids are at and push them appropriately, provide what they need, so.
But I do think,
But you're right,
We gotta be careful.
I agree with both of you, I'm not
Yeah.
disagreeing with that, I totally, I don't want kids pigeonholed into one track. And I agree, 100%. So yeah, we have to,
we got to do this.
yeah.
Good start. Good start.
Thank you.
Good start.
Thank you.
Steve, we really appreciate it.
Okay, sorry, Jen.
No, that's okay. And we don't have to try to rush through all this tonight.
Okay.
I have a little handout that has, the items, and then I did print out a copy of the course catalog that has all the courses for people, we can take a look at a couple examples, probably not all 57 pages. But, at least just to pull up a few. So I did print those out for people. Some people like a hard copy, and I can send this, the checklist I made too, where I linked this.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Quick background, Jen brought this to me and I said, let's just bring this to the team, right, and then see what we think.
Heidi knows it.
Yeah.
Backwards and forwards, right?
Yes, I
So-
had to manually enter it into Omni,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, yeah. And just to, sort of give you a little bit of where we're at with the program of studies, so the course catalog part is done. But we're still fine tuning some of the other pieces, a couple of things that will need to go into the larger, so we're missing probably about 10 pages of the front part of the program of studies that has things around diploma with distinction, GPA, graduation, and that's all stuff that still has to go to the board. So what Heidi and I decided, in the essence of time, because we needed things to get out and get going, was to create just the course catalog document so we could start the registration process. So that seems to be working for us, pretty well. So, and in the course catalog, you'll see, there are honors sections being offered this year. And I have a list. And we do have a document, that our staff worked on, really, they worked on it for a couple months and really thought about it a lot and came back to it. They worked with our curriculum director, Nicole, and Heidi and I, and sort of the PLC team leaders. It went through some revisions, some feedback. So the honors courses available to freshmen will be geometry, global studies, biology, and English. And then for any upperclassmen, so from sophomores, juniors, seniors, will be again, geometry, algebra 2, US history, junior level English, biology, your gov, your money, honors sophomore English. And then there are a variety of honors and AP, and college dual enrollment courses available to juniors and seniors.
I just want to make sure I know. You're saying honors.
Mhm.
We're not talking about honors as today, where everybody takes the same course and then for honors, and just looking at how keep trying to do it.
Correct.
You're talking an honors course that moves at a different pace with more instructional information given and expected of students to absorb.
Correct. That's correct, yep. And so, we're really excited about that because it's, you know, an opportunity, I think, for students that, has been, you know, to date, just again, not the way we've had to do it with our structure and our schedule hasn't been ideal to really take kids and be able to move them through other, you know, to the deeper levels of that depth of knowledge. So I'm really excited. Math has always been, offered at more of an advanced level for students with going right into geometry. So that's sort of not going to necessarily be new. But for a lot of the other content areas, it's new and they're excited. And like I said, so I can send you digital versions of this too, and then you'll have access to look at the honors recommendation process. And we're happy to tweak. I worked with Christine a lot on it too. She viewed it, Tom looked at it, everyone sort of gave it the green go. It's a little bit different from subject area to subject area because it makes a little sense for that to be. Don, to your point, there is an example where you need to meet at least 2 of the 3 criteria. So there's a few courses that it's fine to just be in sort of an opportunity for a student to try, and Tammy, to your point, to be able to challenge themselves, right? Sometimes that's really what we want. And there is a parent override form that we have. So if a parent, regardless of whether or not it has not been recommended, so if that's the recommendation, at the end of the day, that's not the recommendation, the parent can override it. So it's just documented that, you know, you as a parent decided to override this, and, you know, it kind of puts that piece back the other direction, because we're not gonna lower the class necessarily.
The pace is the pace, and
Right.
if you wanna go for it,
Yeah.
then we're not gonna say no, but you're taking a risk.
Yeah, so,
And that's good. I mean, we want kids to take risks and push.
so what I'll do is I'll follow up with all the, electronic versions of what I gave you tonight, and then you can browse and look and see, all the stuff that we've been working on. It's been great.
And
So-
can I just add one quick thing?
Sure.
We've been having some conversations, and we'll have more, in a couple of weeks about I think for us as a group, I just wanted to, we're really happy. Having 8 levels of students in one class is not realistic, and the teachers have given the feedback.
Yeah.
That this is the direction that they wanted things to go. So really, this is in support of our other goals of staff retention and teacher workload. So we're looking at many things. The students come first, but we know that if we have consistency and quality instruction, that helps our students. So by doing this, we have also set up a situation that we need to talk about and be prepared for, which is that there are going to be more course sections. And we have been trying, and the 3 of us have been talking about keeping the class sizes at 20. But it's gonna get tricky, as Jen pointed out, when you have 14 kids that want honors in world history, and it's lopsided. So we just need to realize that, like, we can't do everything all at once. We have to start by offering these courses, offering all the teachers, looking at the class sizes. There may be that we have to make some decisions, and we're going to look to the board for guidance. We're bringing it to you. We're gonna say to you, this is what it's going to look like based on the course registrations. It's a little lopsided here. Can you live with that for this year? Because what I don't wanna do is get into the budget process and have one community member and stand up and say, well, these classes had 12 kids in them. Well, yeah, but we also rearranged again for the 3rd year in a row, the entire master schedule. So it does take time to move things. We moved from 28 credits to 24. We moved from an 8-period day to essentially a 7-period day, 6 periods plus the FLT. We are putting more time toward core instruction. Reading is meeting every day. Science, math, and social studies every day. That's a huge change. They were meeting 3 times out of 6 before. This is super positive, but we just need to be aware that when you start putting kids, giving them choice for honors level work and creating a class for that, it creates other knots that we haven't seen yet. So I'm just trying to pave the way for stress management for my administrators that are working really hard to meet the ambitious goals that everyone has set.
I would add to that, 'cause I think one of the most important things you said, I just want to say it differently.
Can you translate for me?
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks.
or at least try to give my spin on what you said. This is what teachers want. So what that tells me, that a number of these things is, we did a survey and grading too. And more, we are finding that what the board is pushing for, what EISA is pushing for, what the board is pushing for, also is resonating in the community who wanted these things by very large margins. The majority of the teachers wanted them. That when there's pushing before on phone, use of phones, the parents in the community want that, the non-parents in the community, because they don't have phones or don't have phones in their age, they say, you know, we don't see the benefit of this. Teachers are now saying it, but it's good to see that these fundamentals, spending more time on core courses, making sure that there's better discipline and focus in classrooms, restricting the cell phones, getting back to grading, getting the teachers so they actually have different levels of students so they can teach to the student level that's there and not try to do from people that are still 6 grades behind in math and people that are 6 grades above in math and putting them in the same class. So it's good to see that the things the board is pushing, that EISA is pushing, that the administration is talking about and pushing, and that the teachers are also receptive to it and are also supportive of it and are also saying this is what they want and the community wants it also. So it's good to see that this is all together going in the direction that we all hoped it would. And I just want to reiterate what you said there and highlight that.
You can say translate this.
He Jamie spoke it for you.
Okay, so then the next, I know we're approaching 5 minutes left. So, but the next 2 pieces were something that Heidi and I, well, coming out of one of our principal meetings / counseling directors, we get together with all the other schools that send to FSD and talk about all kinds of things. And this was an item that came up about what different schools are doing around online courses, because that also has a huge impact on our schedule and how many students are taking classes versus online. So the 2 pieces that we really wanted to come to this group for feedback, input, and ideas around based on what we're thinking of doing would be the first is a restriction on taking online courses, that if we offer the course and it fits into a student's schedule, that they need to take it here. Because right now we have cases where kids we don't have anything that says that they can't take it on VLAX. So they can and they do, and then they don't, aren't necessarily here for full days, or then they're out of the building. And we really, our goal, I think, is to have our kids taking our classes outside of obviously like extended learning opportunities and internships. That's different, but we would like our students to take what we have offered here.
I think what often happens is I will build the master schedule and there'll be a class when it happens so many times this year that I would build a class and it would have 15, 20 students in it. And then by the time add drop came, the students had dropped the classes, were signing up for VLAX classes. And then all of a sudden I have a teacher with 4 students in front of them that then we come to you folks and you're saying, why are there only 4 students in this class? I'm like, I promise, I put in a class with 4 kids, but we put the kids in front of the teacher and for whatever reasons, the kids just say, nope, this isn't working for me. And then they sign up for it on VLAX. And as Jen said, we have nothing to say you can't do that. VLAX is an approved school in New Hampshire, so we have to take their credits.
So can I ask a question? Can we let them read your proposal and then talk about it at the next meeting? Because this is a little bit of a can of worms.
I won't see at that meeting, so I'm gonna just say, as far as the VLAX thing, from my experience, or my son's experience, really, he took 3 VLAX classes. 2 were because of schedule conflicts, and the 3rd was web design. And, because he wanted to get his tech elective, he had mapped his whole, whatever. High school schedule out, when he was in English. And he knew he wanted to take a pretty good load of classes. And so he just kind of wanted to get the tech, he didn't want to kind of waste a block with the tech elective. So he took that through VLAX. So I guess I would suggest maybe a little bit of flexibility on that, because just because there might be students who really want to challenge themselves with courses here.
And I think that would fit into this,
Yeah,
because
you
he would
would
say,
cancel.
okay, he wanted to take maybe chemistry 2 and anatomy and physiology SNHU, and then has, the 4 regular classes, and those are his two electives, well, where would he fit in a technology credit?
Right.
So
He
that,
took
I
that
think,
in
would be
addition to
the
his
case.
regular
Yeah,
course. He did, like I said,
That would
I think that
It
would.
took him like a whole year. He went into summer with that too.
Wow.
So that's
See,
what
those classes
Well,
are
you know,
not.
We can articulate that, I'm having.
If you want to read this whole proposal and then send me and Jen and Heidi an email with your thoughts, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, and that's.
Well, I have, those are my biggest thoughts. I mean, just
Okay.
because I have experience with the VLAX.
Yep.
You know, through myself.
Theoretically, I understand there's all kinds of rabbit holes. But theoretically, if you're offering something in the building, then the strong preference should be for the kids to take what's being offered in the building. And then how do you structure a policy around that, that does not handcuff people that have, for lack of a better word, extenuating circumstances other than gaming the system?
Right.
That you
Wow.
can somehow meet, and that's where all the rabbit holes lie, but theoretically, it makes total sense that if you're offering that, and it's the same thing in VLAX, you should be taking it to school.
And I think, Jamie, to your point of rabbit holes, I think if you look, when you have time to browse this whole document, you'll see the next point is sort of affirm like, okay, it's not worth it for me too, to do this, which is the conversation around how the VLAX courses would weigh into a student's GPA.
So,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to read through this.
So- Things with the rabbit holes we've talked about that kids jump into through VLAX and taking courses online that have come up through our diploma conversations and all those other things where, you know, it may not necessarily be, you know, I don't wanna say fair, but it takes away from some other stuff, so.
I'm just gonna interject again. Because that now that we've narrowed the class, our schedule to 6 class, you know, my son was in the band, he took Spanish, he wanted to go to a good college, so, you know, he took a full courseload. There's a lot of kids, they want to do band, they want to take a language, they have to take their, you know, I would strongly recommend some flexibility on that, policy.
Tread lightly is what you're saying.
You know, make some exceptions for, you know, yes, be prepared, yes, be prepared to, you know, accommodate students who are trying to, you know, challenge themselves and do band or the arts, you know, like cars, because I know those are hard to fit into schedule anyway. What, we're at.
Accommodate the people trying to extend themselves or not allowing the system to go. That's what.
That's it.
Right.
That's.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Whether it be, and how do you-
Right.
On fire tonight. What's going on? Massive.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I was
I'm
gonna say,
send all
yeah,
these to the group.
All my,
6 years we've been on this committee together. And
I know.
tonight, so many things that we've worked on are starting to happen.
Yeah,
Honors
there was
classes.
a lot of, I wish we had a longer period to meet on some of that stuff, because yes, that was really interesting.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about the VLAX.
Oh, we are adjourned.
Okay, let's make sure.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, yeah.